Perfect. Hi, everybody. I'm Blandine Chantepie-Carry. I'm the International Program Manager at Temple University SBDC in Philadelphia. But today I'm calling you from Temple, Rome. We have a campus, so it's perfect timing to talk to you about the European markets while I am at our campus in Italy. So today we are gathering our SBDCs and our partners to talk to you about the European markets. It's part of our Go Global series of international trade webinars that are about monthly. You have some information about international markets. Next slide, please. So we will, after a little introduction about our network, we'll have our Pennsylvania representative from the Netherlands, Jay, who is going to present you about social media, how to reach the US market. My colleague from Temple University, Sebastian, who is actually calling us from San Francisco, who is going to tell you about tools, practical tools for you to get to meet and reach European leads. Our partner Ed gonna explain the different SBA financing, so to finance your export to Europe. Our dear friends at the World Trade Center, Dale and Ron, are going to tell you about who is coming in 2 weeks and the different programs going to happen with the PRN programs. Then the US Commercial Services, Tony is going to tell us about the amazing delegation, the amazing program going on in Europe in a few months. And then we're going to be open for Q&A, and you have all the resources available to you, all the different agencies and programs here today. So please ask a lot of questions. You will see, you will be able to show your face and speak up. It will be open at the end. Next slide. Yes, and please do not hesitate to put your name and your industry or the name of your company so we get to know you. So we are a network of 16 SBDC across Pennsylvania, located in different universities. So the Go Global program is led by our dear colleague Brent from Pittsburgh University. Brent has some issues today with his camera and his microphone, but at some point he may be able to speak up. But Brent, thank you for your leadership, helping all of us. We gather every month to develop programs for you who are interested in international markets. Next slide. So what SBDC network does for you, our signature services, it's one-on-one consulting at no cost. So if you haven't registered to one of our programs, you can be matched with one consultant, and in each of our center, we have at least one person doing international trade, and we can help you. But also we work with our partners. So if you go through the US Commercial Services, they can guide us. Like, we really work as a team to help you reach international markets. What we do, we mentioned referrals, networking with our partners. We do events like today. We can help you to create your company, get your first loan. And we have also Center of Excellence. So next slide. So in each of our centers, we have specialties to help you, grow. So you may belong to one SBDC and be referred for example, Compass services, like we're going to present later, to another SBDC, or tools like e-commerce, or you want workshops in Spanish. Like we work as a network to provide tailored services to you. Next slide. So this is our webinar today. The next one will be about Canada. And fun fact, Canada is joining what is called the Horizon program, so for innovation. So Canada could be also a gateway for European markets. A lot of collaboration there. So thank you for being here today, but I hope you're going to join also in April to talk about Canada. That is very interesting and relevant to our topic today. So Next slide. I think the next slide, the floor is to Jay, who is calling us from the Netherlands, and who is going to tell you all about social media and in the European Union.
Thank you, Blandine. Yeah, so my name is Jeroen van Baren. It's a very typical Dutch name. Sadly, my second name isn't any better. My brother was blessed with all the international sounding names, and I went into international business, so it's funny like that. If you could go to the next slide, I think that should be my first one, or if I'm not sure if I can do it myself. Let's see. Yeah, perfect. So I'm together with my boss, Peter Sanders, one of the authorized trade representatives for the state of Pennsylvania here in the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. So we help companies from the state with various searches to distributors or partners or clients or do market research. But what we're also very good at is what we call social media selling. And it's essentially a methodology we made or we thought of in the past 5 years, give or take, wherein we use LinkedIn to generate international contacts for sales purposes. If you could go to the next slide, and we'll have a couple of topics that I want to cover today. Small disclaimer, I only have 20 minutes, so I'm trying to sort of do a presentation. I normally do an hour in 20, so some things may be a little bit shallow, but I'll be in PA in the week of the 11th of March. So if you're signed up for the Bring the World to PA program, you can also book a meeting with either me or Peter. We'll both be there. I think there's some background noise.
Hold on, let me use your thing.
Okay, I think we're good. So first, I want to talk a little bit about the usage of LinkedIn in Europe, because I know that some people may not know how much we actually use it here. Then we'll dive into the methodology as to how we approach it, and then I want to get to some things because it can get a little bit, how you can say, like vague maybe for some people. So I want to give you something tangible you can even do today after the meeting. Set up sort of your 10-second profile pitch, and I'll tell you a little bit about what tool we use to find leads on LinkedIn. And then we'll wrap things up. So if you could go to the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit about the use of LinkedIn in Europe. And you can go to the next slide again. I like to use introductory slides. Sorry about that. So if you see, it's like about 75% of LinkedIn users actually come from outside of the US. So the other 25% are from the US. And if you zoom into Europe specifically, you can see that the Netherlands especially is very good at it. Where even though it's, of course, a mainly English-focused platform, we're performing better than the UK, which for all intent and purposes, I've included into the geographical EU market now. With about 85% of our working population being active on the platform, compared to the UK being 75%, Denmark 76%, and in France and Germany are in the high 50s. These numbers are from 2021, so I'm pretty sure it's about 65 now for both France and Germany. But for Germany, it's quite special because even though they have their own copy or version of LinkedIn called Xing, I always jokingly call it the green LinkedIn because their logo is green. It's essentially the same, but in German. The number is growing and it's growing steadily. So they're active on both platforms, which makes it quite interesting. But to keep a long story short, there's a huge sort of potential pool of people and leads to fish from. Even outside of the US, you just have to maybe approach it in a little bit of a different way. So if we could go to the next slide, and I think you could skip the next one because there will be another introductory slide of the topic. I want to sort of do a little bit of a deep dive into our methodology, because what we often see, and maybe just also to give you sort of a status quo, I won't tell you anything about your LinkedIn company page or how to do LinkedIn posts or advertisements. So by that, I mean paid advertisements. I will really be talking here about your personal LinkedIn profile and how you engage with people one-on-one. On the platform. So you can send one-on-one messages, private messages, or DMs. That's what I'll be talking about. So I won't be covering posts or thought leadership or anything like that, because I know that can be very tiring. So I want to skip over that. If you could go to the next slide. What I'll be talking about is using LinkedIn as a tool to sort of circumvent those annoying cold calling things. I think there's only a few people in the world who really enjoy cold calling because they're good at it. If they weren't, they wouldn't enjoy it either. The purpose of using LinkedIn for sales is that once you pick up the phone, the hard part of convincing the person that you're nice and that you're, trustable is already done. But what we very often see, because LinkedIn or any other social platform for that matter is an online environment, people are very focused on the results and doing things quickly and focusing on a direct sale. So you essentially, you can see below there as well, they pop the question out of nowhere and they send you a connection request, and it's something along the lines of, hey, I'm Jeroen and I work for PSPS Business Abroad. Do you want to buy my services? Yes or no? So if you really start thinking about it, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same for everyone, it's going to be quite a while since you've really had a real interaction with a stranger, where you were like, oh, well, this sort of piqued my interest. I'm going to have a conversation with this person. So the problem is if you ask someone to instantly buy your product on LinkedIn, it could work. Sure. There's time where, people have done it and they struck gold, but it's like finding needle in a haystack, right? So it's not going to work every time. So if someone in that moment says no, but it could be a yes 2 months from now, you've already sort of burned that bridge because you did not put in the effort to build a real relationship. And that's sort of where our methodology comes in, to help people to not send that quick message out there, but to really start working towards building that relationship. If you go to the next slide. So the solution is to very simply is try to get to know person first. And I always like to draw sort of the comparison with going to a networking event where you meet someone there. What you do is you tell a little bit about yourself, maybe about what you do, and maybe a little bit about your product. But then you start asking questions because you know that people don't want to hear about you. They want to talk about themselves because they're very interesting. You have the same feeling. But if you want to sell something, you're fine with listening to other people. So you ask questions and you show keen interest. And if you look at, for example, on LinkedIn platform, you can look at their profile and find things and learn things about them that you could maybe use as ammunition in your questions. So maybe you see someone has been developing this medical technology product for over 15 years. He's gone through hell. And you find a post from a couple of months ago where he's gone through some struggle with becoming compliant. And you ask him a couple of questions about it. Hey, I see you've gone through that. We've done it a couple of times. What were your thoughts? You really start a conversation, not with any purpose, just to get to know him better or her. You need to find hooks to see what makes them tick. What questions could you potentially ask to sort of see if you could qualify them as a lead for yourself instead of them qualifying you as in a good fit for the problem they might be able to solve. The essence of everything is making your target feel like a person instead of them sort of already getting the feeling when they see your message, okay, this guy is going to try and sell me stuff, which is what nobody wants. Because at some point, once you've had that conversation and maybe it's been going on for a month or maybe 2 or maybe even 3, people will start going out of their way to do a favor to someone they like. So if you end up going to a foreign trade show, or maybe as an example, there's a large industrial trade show in Germany coming up, the Hannover Messe. Some of you may know it already. You could ask that person, I'm going to exhibit at the Hannover Messe. It looks like a trade show you might be attending as well. Are you going? Should we maybe meet up for a quick cup of coffee? And that's the moment wherein you can sort of, they will return that favor, or they give you that favor of building that relationship and you putting in the effort. And they'll quickly, or very often in our experience with our clients, and when we've done this ourselves, I think 80% of them say yes. And that's the point where you really start selling stuff, of course, because of course we still want to sell them stuff. It just takes a little bit longer, but that's a good thing. Next slide, please. So it's in a sense working with the one-on-one messaging tools this way really allows you to build a long-term relationship and also build on a long-term sort of lead network. So we in the marketing scene, and I think sales as well, you always talk about your lead funnel and marketing funnel. But you know, this is a part of it. We should not see LinkedIn or any other social platform as something quick and dirty. You need to be able to have the conversation, especially now with the rise of artificial intelligence and all kinds of automation tools for marketing. You can quickly pick up on if someone is really being genuine on a platform and it's a person on the other side of the screen instead of someone sending out automated messages, which is very annoying. I wouldn't recommend that. So if these people start talking with you, they're at some point very happy that's actual person. So I see it that Brent already asked something about the Hannover Messe, and Sebastian will be telling a little bit more about the Hannover Messe later on. So in case you guys are curious about that show, I would like to refer you to Sebastian. But maybe to not do too much of a deep dive, because I could tell you all about this and more for a couple of hours and show you great examples of things we've done, which I could do when we're in PA. So if you're interested to learn more about how to sort of tackle those messages, let me know. But let's get into something a little bit more tangible, which you can actually apply today after the webinar. This slide you can skip. Yes, thank you. So the LinkedIn profile is, a lot of people actually use it as their online resume, as it was originally meant to be, of course. What we very often see is that people also now start it for sales purposes, and that's what we do as well. We sort of see your LinkedIn profile as your first 10-second pitch, because every time you see a message, people will read your headline, they'll read your title. So why should it say project manager at PSPS Business Abroad and not something that could convince them to do business with you? So you start really speaking to your target audience, you let them know what you could do for them, and essentially give them your elevator pitch without them actually being aware of it. So to give you an example of someone we've actually worked with on the next slide, I've sort of color coded it here. So this is Cornelis. He works for contact centers or call centers, and he makes visual boards on which they display all kinds of information. That's sort of the short version of it. It's much more complicated than that, I assure you. But what we've done, we incorporate these three things. So they're his target audience, what he could do for them, and how he accomplishes it. So in his case, it would be, I help contact center executives increase employee and customer satisfaction by turning dark data and actionable real-time visual insights. So it's a very easy template. And if you go to the next slide, I've also put it in the presentation. You can just fill it out and you already have quite a great headline for yourself. Then people can recognize themselves in your tagline. So if I would apply this to what I do in my function for Pennsylvania, it will be something along the lines of, I help Pennsylvania exporters generate sales in the Netherlands and Belgium by connecting them with local distributors and clients. I left out Luxembourg here, by the way, because we notice internally that we don't get a lot of business for Luxembourg. So to also shorten it a little bit, I've really focused on the Netherlands and Belgium here. So you can also make a choice there to not make it, like a huge sentence and make it easy to grasp for your target audience. But it's a very simple template you can, like I said, even apply today. So I would highly recommend doing that if you haven't done so already. Onto the next slide. Yeah, so a little bit about the tool we use to select our leads, and there's many more out there, but I think the standard is the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. It's also the easiest one. It's basically the premium version of LinkedIn, or one of them. It's a very powerful tool. I think a lot of people underappreciate it because it allows you to search for very specific people. going back to sort of the cold calling, if you want to get in touch with, I don't know, the CEO or head engineer of a company that you'd like to sell something to or maybe partner up with, you always have to go through a first line. So you have to talk to someone who's doing the sort of the picking up the telephone. You may have to talk to someone of the engineering department, and then maybe you'll get redirected to the head engineer. Through LinkedIn, you can use tools like Sales Navigator to just instantly look for either a list of head engineers with various companies, or you could go to maybe a specific company like Sony or Samsung and say like, hey, I want to talk to one of the head engineers of this and this specific department of this and this country of this company. And you could just shoot them a message and start that conversation that I was talking about earlier. So it really allows you, and I've left out the examples that I would normally show because it takes a long while to really give a good description. But again, it's something I can show you when we're around in Pennsylvania. It gives you a lot of power in selecting the right people for your business, but also to get a feel for how does maybe a business in Europe differ from the ones in the US? Do they maybe use different job titles or function levels? How does that work in my industry? How do my current clients in the US, looking at maybe size or turnover compared to those in Europe? Do they have the same function levels there, or are the organizations much more flat, less hierarchical? So it allows you also to do some kind of market research yourself. Very quick and dirty, but it's still very valuable information to have for your eventual market entry. So on to the next slide. So to keep things short and summarize it, doing your due diligence with Sales Navigator, it really allows you to circumvent those gatekeepers I've been talking about and get in touch. And it says here upper management because very often that's the people you're looking for, but it could also be just the decision makers, or when we're talking about more technical products, could also be the engineering department within the company. Directly, without having to sort of dumb down maybe your product for those at the first line and then going back into further detail with the people that you really want to talk to. So it's using social media, and now I've been talking about LinkedIn in this way, really allows you to generate a relevant network for yourself and activate it not only on a short-term basis, but also on a long-term basis, which is very powerful. And we've been using LinkedIn since I joined the team a little over 5 years ago daily. We rarely pick up the phone anymore for our partner searches or anything like that. We always go to LinkedIn and use Sales Navigator to find them, also to reach out to them. And then later on in the process, of course, we'll pick up the phone to get to further detail. But very often for us internally, but also for our clients, the use of LinkedIn and similar networks is the first step, if you will. So onwards to the next slide, and I believe it's my last one. I'm not sure how I am time-wise. So yeah, in case you're interested in learning more, I'll be present from the 11th until the 15th. I'll also be there on the 16th, but I can imagine you don't want to talk about LinkedIn on a Saturday morning. And Peter, he'll be there on the 18th until the 22nd. And of course, you can always shoot me an email. I'll be more than happy to jump on a virtual call or keep the conversation going over email or LinkedIn, of course. Great. That was it. Thank you. I'm not sure if there's any time left for questions. I kind of lost track of time in the middle of it all. I see Brent. Yeah, in Pittsburgh. I believe I'll be in Pittsburgh on the last day. Either that or Peter will do that on the 18th. But I'll make sure to check my schedule with regards to the dates of Pittsburgh. So if for those that are interested to know, feel free to maybe leave your contact details in the chat, and then I'll get back to you with our schedules. Great. I think with that, Sebastian, I'll hand over the floor to you. Oh, I see that Sebastian is still muted. I'm not sure if someone who has the rights can unmute him.
Okay, I'm unmuted. That was interesting. Thank you. Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
So what's interesting, Taya, is when I have control of the slide, I don't see any more mute, or I don't see the microphone. I don't see anything anymore. So when you do that, I do, but when I'm on the slide, so that's okay. No, we leave it like that, and then I remember to mute after that.
Okay, would you like me to control the slide?
Try to see if that changed something, because I would prefer controlling mute and unmute as needed if there are noise around me. If there is noise around me. Yeah, it's better for me. Okay, I guess let's do that. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a strange thing. Okay, so hello everyone. This is Sebastian Tor, working at Temple SBDC, and we have a presence in San Francisco. That's where I am, working with Blandine on different programs, also with the European Union. So we design and we implement programs at the federal, state level, and also get funded by the European Union on collaboration with the program on collaboration with the European Union. So it's interesting in our team. We have a few entrepreneurs, so I guess I'm one of them. We have I've been in the business of software for about 20 years. I've been in the US, in fact, almost 30 years. And I did 5 exits, so 2 exits in non-tech and 3 exits in tech. Running the first Harley Davidson Cafe in Paris, launching a media company in Paris, then moving to the US and being in enterprise software, doing exit as general manager or CEO or founder. So we know the different steps. We know the pain. We know how hard it is to build a business and to grow a business and to expand internationally. So I think you are in good hands. So thank you for being here, and we hope to share like very pragmatic tips about what it is to go from the US to Europe, or at least to look at the European market. Next slide. So these are the step-by-step. This is a step-by-step approach that we are suggesting. It's not one way of doing things, but that's in summary kind of the step we think are well defined, and they should be followed this way, or sometimes you circumstances make things a little different, but we think that you should always start with market research. So we say overview, analysis, and consultant, meaning you can go on the web and do a market overview. You can go deeper with some papers that's written by the industry analysts, and that's where you analyze the data, and then you, as you are going into deeper, you need more information, you go to consultants. So that exercise can be done with the SBDCs, but a lot of things can be done now. The data is online. A lot of things can be done by yourself, and we're here to support you. When we go into those like 10 steps, I'm going to cover mainly the 9 and 10. The second step about getting a list of prospects for clients and partners. We have one of our SBDCs working with us, so we do that with that group for the clients using the Compass database, and I will cover that a little later when we have time, but that will be, like I said, addressed a little later. In terms of those different steps, instead of me just going through the steps, are you going with a vertical approach or horizontal approach, direct, indirect? Anybody react to those steps? Any questions about, because these are the main topics when you're going international. Where should I start? Should I write a business plan? What country? Why should I go specifically to that country? Is that because I speak the language? What about the shows, the trade shows, the conventions, the symposium? Which one is the most important? So I'd be glad to have a little interaction with you guys on that. Any questions or any comments you have? Well, this is where I am exactly, and this is where I started. So you can do that now in a few seconds, or you can do that in the chat, because that's really how we can get to know you guys. I saw some exchange in the chat about your industry, about hey, this is what I do. Please do that. That really helps us so we can interact, and we'll prepare even better really the Q&A at the end. So that's.
You have one first question, that are trade missions useful? And Tony is going to explain about one trade mission after. But yeah, what about trade missions, Sebastian?
So trade missions, it's usually a good way to get to know the market. First, you need to know if that's relevant in your thought process. We gave you the 10 steps, so that's important to see if that fits really that thought process. Are you already there in terms of understanding the market? Is that a waste of time? These are probably part of that question. It's never a waste of time, but are you at the right, really, in terms of the 10 steps? Are you ready to engage? Are you ready? And it starts with having a website, having collaterals, etc., etc. It's part of the exercise when you do a trade mission. Usually they advise you, they prep you, but can you then engage? Do you have the resources? Do you understand how to talk about your product in Europe? So it's a little exercise of product marketing and product management. These are all the things you need to think about before just going and traveling. But whatever you do early is always, you're always building an asset at the end. You always, that helps you think better, analyze data. When we say market research and everything, if you go there, you have, that's one of the best way to do your market research, by going at a trade show. So these things needs to be thought about. And so never a bad thing is at the right time. That's my answer. Can go to the next slide.
Actually, you have another question about what you put about Shenzhen and EU. What is the difference in their overlap, in your comments in your previous slide? Just
sure.
Concern over different rules, regulation on the area versus the other. Where does the UK fall within this? From Thomas.
So you have the 27 European countries. It's part of, so it's one market. When it's under 27 under the EU, it's one market. So which means there is no, once you are in Europe, that's one of the decisions you make when you go to Europe, is should I be in Europe or outside of Europe? So UK decided to be outside of Europe. So they are not listed, even you saw in the first slide. And Shenzhen is more about the fact that you have borders or no borders. So if you're in Europe and you are in the Shenzhen area, that means you have you can go with one passport to from one country to the other. There is no borders and no security. It's definitely been changing a little before the issue with migrants from Syria. So you heard a lot about that, but it's still being maintained. So that's the difference. UK, when you go to the UK today, it could be an issue because then you're not part of the EU. Things will evolve. We know that at the end, it's just politics, and it will evolve. For example, in terms of funding, just to give you an example, in terms of funding, when they went out of the EU, they stopped all relationships and they didn't collaborate in terms of trade and funding companies. So the EU was not anymore giving any money. That came back to the table. That was negotiated, and it's starting again. The UK is part of the EU funding of that's organized at Brussels, and so it will evolve the same way. And that's maybe a good example or a bad example. Canada has negotiated that same type of relationship with the EU, which means they share funding. And a Canadian company can apply to funding in Europe. So at the end, the EU has been always willing to work with anyone. So that's what's going on. So we are, as a Temple SBDC, we are part of those interesting networks that, in fact, are covering the world. And in the US, you have a few Enterprise Europe network partners. Like Temple and Temple under Temple SBDC in our case. And we would like to discuss, how you can leverage those networks. And we're going to talk a little about, how those networks can give you some matchmaking opportunities and how we've been able to leverage that network and add more elements to create program under SBDC. So that would be maybe my last part. And like I said, if you have a few minutes, we'll talk a little about Compass. So the Enterprise Europe Network is in 60 countries, 600 partner organizations. And in the US, we are, I think, 1, 2, 3, 5 organizations. So if you go to the website, the link that we provide, you will see the contact points. You can go to the next slide. So all the countries that are with contact points in those countries, and so what does that mean? A contact point is at the end it is one contact point per organization, and when for example as Temple SBDC we help the local companies, we help them to go to Europe using the tools of Enterprise Europe Network. And pushing the collaboration at any level. So if you have something to sell or if you have something to buy. And so that's really our role. You can go to the next slide. So these are different questions we answer from the questions from you guys, which could be the exercise here. But that's also, so that's the role of SBDC to address all your topics and to start addressing export, but definitely you have the US Commercial Service to be that take over that when it comes to really supporting you on the ground. So that's definitely a good relationship between SBDC and US Commercial Service. So you should also go to them for your questions, but we can answer a lot of your questions. So one of the questions that comes often is the CE mark, and it's different. If you go in the health space, we have FDA, and ECE is used for many different reasons, and it's self-declaratory. And people always ask, what does that mean? Can I put my CE mark? So we are able to answer all those questions. Any questions in the chat that I know, Blandine, you're probably looking.
Yeah, yes, but they are very specific. Like
Okay.
is about their market. It's more one-on-one type of consulting, like to understand the difference, the taxes. So it really depends on your industry, the trends of the market. So all of that, maybe at the end of the presentation, we'll have little time, but please indicate what is your industry, put your website, because it's very different. We're trying to share with you universal tools. So you can go on EEN and contact EEN in different countries, and different tools that it can apply for all of you. Doesn't matter your industry, but share. And if not, we can do 101. It's at no cost. You need to sign up. The SBDC. That's it. Board games. Okay, Sabrina, I'm going to look at that. You can keep going, Sebastian, and monitoring.
Okay, we can go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so no, that was the one before. Sorry. Yeah, I guess yeah. So we address here the big topic is matchmaking. There are a lot of tools out there for matchmaking. Europe has been very proactive in putting some tools together that are collaborative tools that are shared by, for example, in the case of EEN, by all the EENs. So SBDC, for example, as a tool to track, to be able to support you. It's a CRM. So there is some similarities, and that's why, in fact, we thought it was a good thing to apply to EEN because at the end we are here to serve SMEs, and we have tools that we use or that we share with the SMEs. In the case of Enterprise Europe Network, the SME can go on the platform, and it's supported by the local SBDC, in our case, that'd be us, to help you enter your data and to see if there is a match with other companies, entities. It could be distributors, partners, it could be importers, it could be agents in the database. So everybody is managing really their contacts, and the system does the matchmaking. Next slide. So here are the different steps about creating your profile, how it's published on it's called Merlin, the database, and how you get when you get the interest of a company, it goes directly to their contact point, which go to us, and then we give you really the next step in terms of reaching out, and all of that is done to filter, or at least to raise the quality of the offers and requests, to validate the company, so you don't have to worry, are they real, or can they pay me? All of that is done as part of the process. Next slide. So when you create an offer, this is the type of interface. You can create an offer yourself, but we support the whole process. So usually we do it together. That's what I mean. Next slide. The second tool, and that's a link to trade shows. So what also they realize is trade shows were underutilized. A lot of you probably, some of you know that for too long. You will go to a show, you have a booth, and you wait for people to come to your booth, like opening a store, and there was not enough work done in the front end. And there was at the end, you didn't know who was coming to your booth, or you were discovering that as you're talking, not very efficient. So a lot of matchmaking tools or partnering tools, whatever you call that, have been put on the market. So in the case of Enterprise Europe Network, they use software vendors to do that. And one of them is called B2Match. And that's a platform that's just an example of a number of events, number of participants. And that's been really, really interesting and efficient. If you go to a show today, or it's a partnering show, or it's a show that has some partnering type of capability, or what they call also networking capability. So for example, Web Summit, or the big show I'm thinking of tech here, they have a way to connect with people. But we think it's better if it's more than just connecting and arranging meetings in the front end, which can be so on-site or online, and we can cover that. We will cover that later. Next slide. Next slide. So it's just examples of two shows that we cover with SBDC. And it's a bio show that's the next one is going to be in June. So we have a special program for that. We will cover that. And Hannover Messe, well, there was a question about Hannover Messe. It's just an example of a show that we've been covering with SBDC under the program International Business Bootcamp, so IB Square. We'll cover that later. So we know well that show. It's a smart factory show. It's one of those shows, that bring more than 100,000 people. They have a different platform. Most of them are run by EN, Enterprise Europe Network. So this is a really good relationship with the trade show vendor. And so for the trade shows that didn't want to put a platform, they went directly to the ENs to put that together. And it's a very collaborative platform where every EN, little like what I explained on the other platform, every EN, have a way to support their companies and to track the interaction and make the meetings happen. Next slide. So Bio, we don't need to insist because maybe not all of you are in that space. If you are, please let us know in the chat. Hey, I'm interested by the Bio show. I'm in the biotech space. Maybe I'm in the medtech space. And this is a major show, and it's really first a partnering show. So that's a very interesting. There's really having a booth, having a presence on the floor is a secondary. Really, you go there because you can get meetings. I'm talking about, they went up to 65,000 meetings, and that's the only thing you do. And then when you have time, you go visit the sub booth. And so that's really the what's unique for Bio, and it's evolving into different I would say activities. So for example, they have a partnering tool at JP Morgan. For the ones who know the space, JP Morgan is in January. So the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference, and it's happening in San Francisco. The next Bio is happening in San Diego, FYI. Can go to the next slide. So it's in the price, or when it's a show that's organized a matchmaking event, it's part of the price. If you just pay for the partnering, you pay like $1,000. If you have a booth on the top of that, it's included. But you have to pay something. So that's a difference. When it's EN, usually it's free or very low cost. Can I go to the next slide? So Hannover Messe, we have done, I think, two IB Square for Hannover Messe, two IB Square programs. So preparing companies to the show. So we are very comfortable. If you're interested in that show, we're very comfortable telling you more about the specific show. And we really believe in the show. There's a big presence of the US Commercial Service and a big presence of the different states. So which means a state like in the case of Jay, he will be there and supporting the companies from Pennsylvania. So they are those type of shows that really are used to support US companies. Next slide. So that's one of the tools of the EN B2 match that I've just mentioned, and the link. So you can go look further, and so that that you can play with it. You will see maybe what happened before. Here in 2022, because we participated in 2022, there was 763 participants and that many meetings. So that gives you kind of it's really used mainly by the EN. It's not all the participants that use it in that particular case where it's EN, but it's very efficient because it's supported by EN. Can go to the next slide. So in terms of how we leverage those type of the trade shows and the matchmaking, we created programs called IB Square, where we in fact help companies go to those shows or prepare for those shows or understand those shows and have a chance to go to those shows and do some activities. And we definitely push for the matchmaking, which means educating you on the platform, training you on the platform, bringing resources to have you create your profile on the platform, and also understanding the vocabulary and who you want to meet and why. Each industry obviously has their own type of their own dynamic. So when you're in biotech, you could be a biotech firm. You probably look for big pharma because you're probably in the process of developing a drug or a therapy, and you have other players like for CROs, CMOs. So once you understand, why you want to meet, you're quite efficient, and then also when you create your profile, you know better how to introduce yourself. Next slide. So this is a 10-week bootcamp. So we give the example of what we do at Bio. We know a lot of you are not in that space, but I give you an example of the next event, the next program we're doing. And we cover Hannover Messe. We just did CES, a Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. So we take those really large shows where you are sure that you're going to meet foreign players. So as you saw, we look at trade shows in the US and also trade shows in Europe. So for different reasons, always the largest we can, so you can really have a chance to meet as many partners as possible. And after that, it's all about your positioning. So we don't look at smaller shows, niche market type of shows. So 10-week bootcamp, soft skills development. So all of that is part of really what we put on the table for you during that 10-week program. We can go to the next slide, and you can see it's a relationship with also the NSF ICOR team on the East Coast. I don't know if you know NSF ICOR, anybody in the chat. It's an important program. It's in the tech space. It's an important program to help you in your customer discovery phase. And we really thought that what better than a show to meet customers and partners. And so we have built a relationship with that program. It's a very, very well-known program. And so you see how everything fit at the end. It's about collaborating different agencies like we're doing now, and making those activities super efficient. So this is the curriculum in the space. NIH and DoD are very important. So we have those relationships with those agencies. It's important that as part of the exercise, we give you the big picture of the show. We explain the different players, and it's a very pragmatic really way of explaining a show. So we bring people that understand the show. That's going to give you also to not only their knowledge but also their contact, and with those type of agencies, also a way to collaborate with them. So that's what we cover. Can go to the next slide. So Compass, it's important. It's one of the first step is I want to understand where should I go, and but who should I work with? Can you give me a way to identify those players? So in Europe, there's a large database called Compass. In the US, companies use more Hoovers. So European going to the US, which is another database, which is public. But it's not like once again the other, but it's just another one that's been used in the US. In Europe, it's very much Compass. And so you have access to really millions of companies. And the role of SBDC is that you don't really waste time on it, is to give you a chance. So it's the ask is, I want 100 contacts in that particular, this is my ask, this is, give me 100 contacts there, and I will reach out to them. But the most important is, okay, what contacts, what industry, what market, and that's where the SBDCs are helping you. Can go to the next slide. So this is the type of search that we do. So it could be I'm a shoe manufacturer. I want to know my competitors, or I'm a supplier of shoe manufacturers. I want to know who are the guys out there, and so that complements very well your market research. But that's very specific, and we give you really the contacts and the contact info and how to reach them. Next slide. Again, so it's just to show you how broad is that database. Now I'm in the space of surgery. I want to know what are different surgical centers in North America. Again, it's used also in the US. So definitely, if you want to have a national expansion, you might want to use us through Compass. Next slide. So this type of report we get, so it's very precise, contact info, telephone, emails, etc., etc. So that gives you just the output and what we will send to you. Next slide. These are contact information. You can reach us anytime, Blandine and I. but this is the generic, where to find us. You have also Taya with us today, and thank you for the opportunity. If you have any questions on the chat or anything, let us. I don't know if Blandine you found anything, or anyone is the right time to ask questions about what we just covered. Are we good? Yes, I'm looking also. I see that Blandine you're answering. I see a question about NFP shared services. I don't know who wants to take the lead on that. And I will leave the floor for the next presentation. Thank you.
Should I take it from here?
Yes, you can. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Sebastian. Thanks. Appreciate it. Hello, everyone. My name is Ed Schick. As it says here, I'm the Export Finance Manager for the Office of International Trade for the Small Business Administration. Now, you might think of SBA on the domestic side, PPP, EIDL, all those fun programs, 7A, but we also have an international division. If you want to just go to the next slide just for the... So just to give you a quick overview, because now, all this great information you're getting, the next step is, well, where am I going to, how am I going to finance this? How am I going to get money for this, for these opportunities to export, to Europe? Like Blandine said early on in the beginning, there are resource partners in Pennsylvania or throughout the country, wherever you're calling from. And it's real important to understand that, because we all work together as a team. The SBDCs, Commercial Service, SBA, and other players such as XM Bank and so forth. We all want to help you, the business, export. And why is that? Well, 95% of consumers live outside the United States. In this situation, 450 million consumers in the European Union, 25 million SMEs in the European Union. There's a market out there. And if you do it right, work with SBDCs, it's a great first step. They can help you develop what you need in order to go forward. So getting back to the SBA, what is my group, the Office of International Trade? What do we do? Well, we do three things. First, we do trade policy. If you have an issue where you feel that you're being hurt by overseas, we can come in and we can analyze it, we can talk it over and so forth. A second characteristic of our group is what we call STEP, the State Trade Expansion Program. In Pennsylvania, it's called GAP, and this is a grant that's provided to you, the company, so you can do your export activity. For instance, going to trade shows, doing trade missions. I know they'll be discussed after my presentation, but unfortunately in Pennsylvania, STEP is fully booked. But there's other states. If you're in another state, most of the states have their own STEP program. So it's a nice grant. It's free money. But I know Pennsylvania is very competitive, and it's great because there are a lot of, Pennsylvania is a big time exporting state. And then the third characteristic of our division is what I do, is the trade finance part. So we have several programs that help a bank lend to you. We, the Office of International Trade at the SBA, we do not direct finance you. You have to go through your financial institution. So we help the financial institution feel comfortable in order to lend to you through a guarantee program, a government wrap, what we like to call it. So before I get into the program, I just wanted to show you this slide, because I like this slide because it gives you an understanding of where the risk is. So you might be the exporter and you're talking to your foreign buyer, and you're saying to the foreign buyer, I want to get paid before I ship or before I provide you a service. Well, where's the risk there? You know, there's no risk on your part because you're going to get paid before you provide a service or a product. But for the foreign buyer, it's all the risk. So this is where, for you, the small business, to understand where is that middle of the road risk. And of course, it's, you know, letters of credit, documentary collections, and then there's financing, which really helps as well. And then I saw in the chat an information about credit insurance. Trade credit insurance is probably your #1 product you want to have in your back pocket, because it allows you, you know, it's an insurance policy, just like for your car, for your house. It allows you to provide terms to your foreign buyer, and it makes, you know, it doesn't cover 100% of the contract price, but at least it helps you feel that if, you know, if your margins are a certain percentage, you feel like you'll at least get your money back in a way. So this is where the SBDC, Commercial Service, you know, World Trade Center, we can all help you identify trade credit insurance brokers. Anyway, next slide, please. Great. So here are our 3 basic programs, our 3 core programs. And these programs are a mix of term loans and working capital. You know, you need working capital to provide a service to your client. And the way we do it is we put it under these 3 programs, because it goes from a small amount up to 500,000 to a big amount up to $5 million. So you do have a way to balance what you need. And so the first program we do, which is I enjoy quite a bit, because it's our smaller program, and also provides term loan and working capital. It's called Export Express. It's goes up to $500,000, and as you can see here on the slide, if you request up to $350,000, the SBA will provide your bank or your lender up to a 90% guarantee. So if you need 100,000, that's really good, because, you know, you're gonna have a nice, you know, the bank is going to provide you with it, knowing that, you know, it's guaranteed by the U.S. government. Now, the issue here is that the reason why we provide these guarantees is because couple of reasons why. First, the bank might not be, you know, comfortable providing support for an export, because let's say it's foreign to the lender. So we come in, we help, and we help the bank understand, well, here's a company that's exporting to the Netherlands. You know, let's see how we can support that transaction. And just a footnote, if you're not in Pennsylvania, you know, if you're in Texas, if you're in Florida, if you're in Oklahoma, there is somebody like me that can help you with your lender. So that's very important to know as well. So with their Export Express, this is a program where, hey, you need to buy a $50,000 piece of equipment that's going to be used to manufacture a widget, because you're going to sell it to, you know, to the Netherlands. Because you have a buyer there that needs a piece of equipment, a widget that you make, that you have that niche product, and you're going to be selling it to the Netherlands. So now you'd have to look for $50,000, and let's say, you know, you're a small company and you have some collateral issues or a shortfall. So we come in, and well, your lender should know that, hey, if we get a 90% guarantee from the SBA, that's pretty good. I think we can take that chance with you, the company, to export to Europe. So this is why it's a very good program, because let's say you need a line of credit. Let's say you need to buy widgets to make a piece of equipment, or something with a service that you're going to send to Europe. This is where we come in as well. So basically, with the Export Express, it is more of an export activity characteristic. So let's say you want to go to Hannover Messe. You need to spend, you know, $50,000 for that, because you're not just going to go, you're going to exhibit, or you're going to do more than just that. This program can help you support your trade mission, your trade show journey. So think about it, think of Export Express as a export activity financing. It can be e-commerce, it can be, you know, whatever you think you need to do in order to increase those sales. Because remember, all of us here are here to support you because we want you to be successful in exporting to Europe, Middle East, everywhere. So now our second program we have here is what the Export Working Capital Program. Now this is a little bit, it's a larger program. It can be for a more more active exporter, so to speak. But then again, we have two forms of this working capital program. We have what we call asset-based, which is just a revolver. So as you go, as you get contracts, you need to buy inventory, you just keep on going. The banks like this, it's a 90% guarantee, but it's also a transaction base. So let's say you're a small company and you're saying, geez, I just got a $2 million order from the UK to build a piece of equipment, water treatment, a water treatment plant for the UK. And you need all the, this is just the transaction you're going to do. It's probably the only transaction you're going to do this year, let's say. But you need the funding, right? You need some working capital for that $2 million order. That's where we can come in as well. It's a transaction based. Very important to understand that, because it's not always that you have to have 10 contracts to qualify for our program. No, got one contract, you have to work on it. This is where we come. So you would work with your lender. Again, I emphasize, we the SBA do not lend to you, the company. You have to do it through your lender. But that's what we're here for, to coordinate, to work as a team. We're all about teamwork here, because that's the only way you're going to succeed. And we're all here to help you. Another important part of this program is the standby letters of credit, because sometimes you might be asked to issue a performance bond. Why? Well, maybe you're asking for a bigger down payment and your foreign buyer is saying, hey, I want, I'll give you the larger down payment, but I want to make sure you're going to perform. So I want a performance bond. Very simple. Your lender will issue a performance bond. And of course, there's collateral issues here when it comes to the performance bond. Usually on a non-SBA or non-government guarantee, if you ask for $100,000 performance bond, you have to put $100,000 as cash collateral. That takes away liquidity from your pocket. With a government wrap like an export working capital program, we only require a 25% collateral. So that means instead of 100,000 collateral, you're only going to put 25,000. So look at that extra liquidity you have now to perform what you need. So again, it's a good program. It's more for the, of course, if you're under 500,000, you're going to do the Export Express. If you're over the 500,000 threshold, you're going to do the Export Working Capital Program. So keep that in mind when you're trying to decide, well, do I need $700,000 or could I do $500,000? Because the difference in structure for the lender, now let me put myself in the lender shoes. Export Express is it's a much easier program to monitor or to administer than it is the Export Working Capital, because with the Export Working Capital, you have to monitor what you're advancing. You have to have a control account if you're doing a transaction-based structure. So it's a little bit more, there's a little bit more effort for the bank to do under the EWCP versus the Export Express. And you know how banks are. They don't want to work too hard, but they want to make money. And either way, they're going to do well on this. And then on our third program. Hello. Then the third program we have is a term loan. It's called the International Trade Loan. Up to $5 million, 90% guarantee. So you need to buy equipment. You need to buy a warehouse. Heck, you need to buy a business. You see that you have a business down the street that exports, and you say to yourself, hey, I want to get into this business, and you want to buy that company. This is what we can do this as well for this trade loan. So it's a very flexible program when it comes to what you can do with it. And I see a lot of international trade loans over the past few months, and it's all for business acquisition. So it is a very good program. And I think what happens here is that, you really have to see, okay, do I want to buy, a piece of equipment for, $600,000 that will increase my, my export opportunity, or even to get into the market. Let's say, for instance, with all this information you're gathering today in this webinar, and you're saying, wow, and you're using the services of our partners over in Europe, and all of a sudden you get an order to for something, and you need to expand your production base. Hey, this is where the international trade loan comes in. And I just wanted to say one more thing about before I open for any questions. These programs are so if you go to your lender and you say, hey, I want to do the Export Express program, and your lender says, well, we don't do it. It's not 100% true, because we have a domestic program called Express, which is same structure, except the guarantee is less. But again, it's the same way of looking at the program. And if you ask your lender, hey, I want to do the international trade loan, and they say, we don't do it. Again, it's not that they don't do it. It's just that, the international trade loan is very similar to, if you're familiar with SBA programs, international trade loan is very similar to the 7A program, which is the domestic cousin of the international trade loan. So these programs are very much available to your lender. Again, that's where I'm here. That's where I work. That's where I come in. If you go to your lender and they don't do Export Express or they don't do international trade loan, you come to me. I'll talk to the lender and we'll see how we can do it. I also work a lot with the SBA district offices. So we again, teamwork. Next slide. So I just want to leave you with this thought, because sometimes you're a company and, you say to yourself, well, you know what? I don't export. I'd like to export, but I don't export. But let's say you have a client that exports. So you supply a widget to a US-based company, and that US-based company ships it overseas to Europe. Well, you're part of the supply chain, the international supply chain. So you would become an indirect exporter, and you would qualify for our programs because you are part of this supply chain. So keep that in mind, because sometimes you might think, yeah, I do. I have a client that ships to France and ships to Portugal. So these are things where you really have to be, really understand what your clients do. And this is something that a lot of lenders don't understand. And when I tell them that, the light bulbs goes off and they start saying, oh, I've got several customers that do that. So I just wanted to leave you with that. Next question, next slide is a thing. I think I finished just in time. Well, great. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. This is my contact information. If you're in another state, I can, forward you my counterpart in that particular state. Thank you very much.
So I guess we're waiting for the next presentation.
Yes, but I'm on mute.
Now we can hear you.
We can hear you, Dale.
I'm on mute. You need to
You're
take
not.
me off mute.
We can hear you.
you.
We can hear
And
you,
I
Dale.
need the start of my presentation. This is the end.
We hear you.
It says I'm on mute.
No.
Can you hear me?
No, we can hear you. You go.
Well,
Yes.
I need to start
Loud
the
and clear.
presentation.
We can hear
Okay.
you loud and clear.
All right, thank you. So, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name's Dale Foote. I'm International Trade Specialist at the World Trade Center of Greater Philadelphia, covering Philadelphia, Bucks, and Montgomery counties. Could we go to the next slide, please? I'm going to have to skip over the first couple of slides here and not go into too much detail. This is showing World Trade Centers all around the world in major cities. There's more than 300 of them. But we want to concentrate on the services that we provide for the Pennsylvania Export Program today with the Office of International Business Development and the 13 overseas authorized trade representatives covering 44 countries. Next slide, please. And I won't go into detail here. This is a little bit over and above what we do for the state. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's the slide that I want to get started with and spend a little bit of time just explaining what we do here in the southeast region of Pennsylvania for the Office of International Business Pennsylvania Export Program. We cover, again, the counties of Philadelphia, Bucks, and Montgomery County, which I cover. And then I have two other colleagues that are covering Chester and Delaware County. We're one of 10 regional export network representatives for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And your local liaison and link to the 13 overseas authorized trade representatives covering a total of 44 countries for Pennsylvania. This program is primarily supported by your Pennsylvania corporate tax dollars, and we do a number of one-on-one services with primarily small to mid-sized companies, but also Fortune 500 companies as well that need specialized assistance internationally. So we do export readiness assessments, market entry strategies, market research, international trade guidance, and we're working in conjunction frequently not only with the Pennsylvania 13 overseas authorized trade representatives, but with the local small business development centers and the U.S. Commercial Service, all work together for the best interest of the client company to help them whatever is in their best interest, both time-wise and or cost-wise. So when we meet one-on-one with the companies, we use an electronic process with Harrisburg and the 13 overseas authorized trade representatives called a work order. And in that electronic form, you can request different services such as customized market and competitive intelligence, identifying overseas partners such as agent distributor searches, also qualifying background checks on people that you might meet at a trade show or that contact you directly off your website. So we work and help sort out regulatory information and requirements for different products. Look at what the import tariff and or duties might be. And then when you're actually traveling on a trade show or trade mission, we can help set up appointments, again, through the Overseas Authorized Trade Representative Office, help you with local hotels. Main purpose, obviously, helping you schedule meetings at that particular event, and then work with translation requirements or local transportation requirements. So kind of a soup to nuts assistance once you're in country overseas. Next slide, please. So here again is just kind of an overview of the things that we do, but obviously the starting point is our one-on-one international trade counseling meetings with our different international trade specialists like myself. We do a number of educational seminars, webinars, and conferences, such as our annual Global Business Conference. We do those frequently in conjunction with Temple or Drexel University or other educational institutions. We have, for companies that are active in China or Southeast Asia or India, we have clubs for meetings that's part of our World Trade Center service over and above the state Pennsylvania's export program, but for companies doing business in those specific China, India, and Southeast Asia regions, which are very popular and very helpful, not only on a networking base, but we bring in different speakers and look at different opportunities in those specific markets, which have been growing rapidly over the last 10 years. We then also support trade missions and trade shows that both the state of Pennsylvania is doing and or the U.S. Commercial Service and or Food Export USA. So again, the state recently, last November, had their participation and booth at the annual Medica show in Dusseldorf, Germany for medical device, life science, healthcare companies, and we had a number of companies that exhibited in the PA booth at Medica. So that's a great, much lower cost than having your own booth there as a way to get started in Europe. And again, partnering with Temple SBDC and or the Commercial Service and the Pennsylvania in-country ATRs to help set up meetings. Authorized Trade Rep is the ATR acronym that I was using. Pennsylvania has a office in Germany, Austria, in Germany that covers Austria, Switzerland, and Italy. So next slide, please.
Yes. Yes, this is Ron.
Okay, so here's where we are in the southeastern Pennsylvania region as the World Trade Center of Greater Philadelphia, but we have regional export network partners divided into 10 regions all across the state. So for any of you that aren't in the Greater Philadelphia, Southeastern Pennsylvania region on this webinar today, you can use the link at the top of the page here to get your local regional export network or REN partner contact information. So that can be helpful. So you have local contacts such as myself anywhere throughout the state. Next slide, please. So let me spend a little bit more time here on our program called Bringing the World to Pennsylvania that's administered and organized by Harrisburg. The 13 overseas Pennsylvania Authorized Trade Representatives, or ATRs, come usually every September, but this year, due to the budget delay in Harrisburg, it was postponed till this March. So we're in the midst of taking registrations now. We're going to be hosting 2 days in our region, Wednesday, March 20th at in Center City, Philadelphia at the offices of KPMG, and also half a day at Penn State Great Valley in Melbourne. So export-ready companies that would like to have a one-on-one meeting with any of the 13 Pennsylvania Overseas Authorized Trade Representatives can register at the link. We'll be sending out the slides later, so if you're in our region, you can use the link off that slide or go to our website, which you'll see at the end of my presentation. You will need your federal employer identification number or FEIN number to register, because that's how we get you entered into the both our and the state Pennsylvania's database, just to authorize that you're a Pennsylvania company. So next slide, please. So this is a little bit more. So you'd be able to meet with the Benelux, Netherlands, Luxembourg, and Belgium ATR, who presented at the start of this webinar, and or any of the other 12 authorized trade representatives. And if you have any questions about whether you're export ready, or if this is your first time attending and wonder if it would be a good use of your time, we would be happy to speak with you. Next slide, please. So here's my contact information. And again, the top link here is for the regional export network that Pennsylvania has with the 10 RENs across the state. And my colleague Ron Drews, who's on the webinar, and also one of our newer trade specialists, Josh Fishbein, who's working with Ron here to get up to speed in Delaware and Chester counties initially. Next slide. Thank you very much, and have a great day. Pass it on to the next speaker. I think it's Tony Sabalas from the U.S. Commercial Service. Yes.
That would be correct, Dale. Thank you so much. Just a sound check. Can you hear me? Dale,
Yes.
can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you for that confirmation. So moving on to the first slide, if you don't mind. Just wanted to thank Blandine and Brent for creating this program. I think it's very important export seminar, and it's definitely generating a lot of interest based upon all the questions. So that I think there's a lot of interest of exploring international opportunities. So a very, very timely program. So good morning, everybody. I'm Tony Ceballos with the U.S. Commercial Service. So for anyone who's not familiar with our organization, the U.S. Commercial Service, sometimes called the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service, is under International Trade Administration, which is under the U.S. Department of Commerce. Huge organization, but every unit has its own particular mission. And our mission is to help companies to increase their export sales by leveraging our global network of U.S. embassies and U.S. consulates to reach consumer markets, and also to connect with foreign buyers and foreign partners. And you've all heard that exporters grow faster, they pay higher wages, they're less likely to go out of business. So there's so many reasons why U.S. companies should export, and not enough companies are exporting. There's only about 1% of U.S. companies exporting. So our main objective is to ensure that all American-based companies have access to export markets, and therefore have an opportunity to exponentially grow your sales and your businesses through trade. So last year we helped 93,000 companies, and we helped them to generate about 170 billion in U.S. exports and foreign direct investment. That's what is reported. The number is definitely higher because administrative burdens on us is overwhelming, and we only report what we can. But we're helping a lot of companies every year. As Ed said, there is a market, and these numbers prove that the companies are aware of the opportunities, and they're actively seeking our help, and they're seeking the help of our trade partners within the ecosystem. That includes everybody who just spoke today. Moving on to the next slide, please. So to achieve this export expansion for U.S. businesses, we have to be strategically located throughout the country and across the globe. So I'm in Philadelphia. I'm in one of 106 offices located in major U.S. cities. And we have over 120 commercial service offices worldwide. And those are in 75 markets located in embassies, in U.S. embassies and U.S. consulates. We cover an additional 60 countries through our partner post arrangement with the State Department. So we have a global reach of 135 countries, and that's a global reach that you have access to, because as a U.S. taxpayer, we work for you to help you expand your market internationally. So our commercial service offices are managed by senior commercial officers, principal commercial officers. These are American citizens that are trained in Washington to take the Foreign Service exam, to execute our export mission in embassies around the world, and they rotate from country post to country post. The embassy staff in the country, they speak the local language. They are Foreign Service nationals. They understand the market, and but their mission is to help U.S. exporters. Again, they're working for the U.S. taxpayer. So this is the worldwide network that we leverage to ensure that all American-based companies have access to international markets. However, the global marketplace can be very challenging, as you heard of some of the challenges the previous speakers had mentioned, as well as some of the chat that's going, the questions that are coming through the chat. Therefore, we spend a lot of time preparing exporters for those challenges by counseling them on market entry requirements and compliance with U.S. foreign regulations, and ultimately finding a buyer. Our core competency is helping a company match up with a buyer or a partner. So as Brent mentioned, international education, I also want to add tourism. So we also help education institutions to attract international students. It's a huge revenue generator for Pennsylvania and for the United States. Tourism, the same way. We work with the Philadelphia Convention and Visitor Bureau and other destination management organizations to attract international tourists to the United States and to Pennsylvania, because tourism also is a major revenue generator. And all of our services that we have that I'm going to talk about are applicable to education and tourism. So next slide, please. So beyond just the matchmaking, we have a comprehensive suite of international services to help companies prepare for exporting, to maintain trade compliance, and to identify the markets with their highest potential. So starting with export counseling, it's free, but it's probably the most valuable. Our trade specialists will meet with you to listen to your concerns, your international goals, and to better understand your business needs. Ultimately, we help you to customize a plan, to find your target market, to understand what are the foreign regulations, U.S. regulations to export your product, and also to identify, or ultimately to identify international buyers. We utilize our country commercial guides and our industry and best market reports to ensure that we're providing you with the most accurate information on the market, and to provide that to you so you have documentation as to what are the guidelines, what are some of the best industries, who are your competitors. Another service that we have is through our advocacy center. So we can help you to improve your chances in winning foreign government procurements. And this office is in Washington, and they're connected to all of the federal agencies and the embassies and the posts. So they're part of our effort to help create a level playing field for U.S. businesses, because it is a challenging market, and you want to make sure that you have the full weight of the U.S. government on your side. We also provide trade event support to introduce exporters to foreign buyers at trade shows and trade missions. Next slide, please. So this slide is our largest trade mission. It's called Trade Winds, and this year it's going to Turkey, Romania, Poland, Denmark, Italy, and Kazakhstan, and the dates are May 13th to 15th. Right now, we have about 127 registered for the mission stops. We're going to pare that down based on the market assessments, probably about half of that number. But these companies are going to receive business-to-business meetings, business to government. So they're going to meet with our commercial officers and commercial specialists. They'll be receiving commercial briefings and presentations on those specific markets. Next slide, please. So this just gives you the kind of outline of what's going to happen at the program and how it's structured and what are the costs. And there's also some sponsorship opportunities. But as I mentioned, companies will have the opportunity to meet one-on-one with commercial officers in 20 countries and discuss their export potential in each market. And the companies that are going to the trade mission stops, they will meet directly with pre-qualified business partners. It's basically our Gold Key service. It's a business matchmaking service that does a market assessment, identifies companies that are compatible with your industry, want to do business with you, and want to talk to you about representing your product or buying your product. So our trade missions useful. That was one of the questions. They are very useful for business-to-business matchmaking or business-to-business meetings, for business-to-government meetings with either our commercial specialists or with government officials in country who are applicable to your industry. They're useful for site visits. They're also useful for market briefings from our people who are on the ground, whether they're the commercial officers or the commercial specialists. These are people who can give you the lay of the land on how well your product can do in that particular market. What is your market entry strategy? Who are the competitors? All that information. So moving on to the last slide. We're running out of time here. We have a whole team in Pennsylvania, the commercial service with offices in Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, and Philadelphia. And the directors for both of those offices are as well as myself, are on the line. So Nick Cervantes is the director for Harrisburg. Ryan Russell is the director in Pittsburgh. He's on the line. Feel free to shoot him a message. So our trade specialists are assigned by industry. They operate as trusted advisors to help companies to navigate the global market. In addition to helping you to identify buyers and expand your business internationally, they help you to resolve immediate trade issues and any kind of request that you're getting from an overseas buyer or potential partner. The trade specialist also evaluates your export readiness. They bring in the right trade resources and they ultimately help you customize an export plan to get into that market and to sell your products. They also operate on a principle of partnership and collaboration. It's part of our process to ensure that companies have access to every tool available that's in Pennsylvania. We also serve Delaware, so any resource in Delaware as well to grow their business. So we make sure that we're on a first name basis with all of the resources to help craft a solution together, because we have a very narrow focus, which is helping companies that are that have a product or a service that is 51% U.S. content, and they're planning on exporting. We know that there's a lot of different international business strategies that involve investment, and it could involve importing. There's so many things that it could involve, and we take a small slice of that, and we bring in all of our partners to make sure that we're helping the company fully. So therefore, our trade specialists work within the local trade ecosystem, which includes the Pennsylvania SBDCs, the state of Pennsylvania, the World Trade Center of Philadelphia, City of Philadelphia, and many others. And with that, I just will thank the SBDC again for putting this export seminar together and including the commercial service. And back to, I think, Blandine or whoever is moderating.
So I'm here, Sebastian.
Sebastian,
We
okay,
should have
sorry.
Blandine, we should have Trish, we should have Taya, and we should have Brent. And I know Brent has maybe his audio. So I guess we're going to close this session. Maybe there are some questions like maybe in the chat that we are missing.
I don't see any new questions that came in. If you have any questions, please feel free to submit them in the chat box.
Yeah, and we'll collect those questions if you have, give us some always with the context, and then maybe Taya, if we can export that, and we'll follow up on all of that. Obviously, that's very useful.
If you do have any questions, I am linking the sbdc@temple.edu email. You can feel free to send any questions that you may have pertaining to the webinar to that email, and we will follow up with you. Again, a follow-up email will be sent within 2 to 3 business days with the materials from this presentation. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you to all of our presenters for presenting this webinar.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for the panel, and thank you for the organizers.